If you search for the Scottish Family Party online, probably the top thing would come up would be our own website. Probably number 2 will come the Wikipedia page. Wikipedia is very important now. If you want to know something about anything, it's often a good place to start. So let's see how that's worked out for the Scottish Family Party. This is particularly important at the moment because with AI becoming more and more prominent, where are AI systems going to get their information from? So if you put into ChatGPT or whatever, tell me about the Scottish Family Party. Okay, eventually it will probably get the information from Wikipedia as much as from anywhere else. So let's have a look at the Scottish Family Party's Wikipedia page, and it is an absolute pack of lies. So here we go. There's our logo. No, it's not. That's not the Family Party logo. That's something that maybe, I don't know, maybe the BBC made up because their system couldn't handle a white logo. I have no idea. Right, ideology. Christian right. No, we don't have any religious affiliation. Okay, well, our policies would overlap with a lot of parties that might call themselves Christian right. Anti-LGBT. That's not the way we'd want to phrase that at all, but, you know, you can sort of see how some people might think that. How about this one, though? Hard Euroscepticism. Point blank, 100% wrong. That is not true. Our policies say we are neutral on the European Union. Now, they quote a reference to an article that doesn't say that. But this is something where we can go in, we can correct this on Wikipedia, and we have done. So we correct it, linking to our policy, where it says we're neutral on the EU, but that gets overruled from someone else who's linking to an article in the national newspaper. And, you know, you just go around in circles, and basically there's nothing you can do about it. So you've got outright lies, a lot of them originating from the national newspaper, but other sort of incompetent media outlets as well. And, yeah, there's nothing you can do about it. People want to find out about the Scottish Family Party, and they come up with this. Political position, right-wing. We dispute that. A lot of the conventional right-left issues we're neutral on. Right, colours, blue. I mean, how difficult is it to get that right? Our party colour is white. Okay, anyway. Right, so let's see what else it says about us and our policies. We're demanding a crackdown on underage sex. What? Rather than allowing a pastoral or care-centric approach, the party would seek to police children aged 13 to 15 having sexual relations. Right, another way of phrasing that is we think the age of consent law should be applied. It should be treated as a law instead of bypassed and ignored. But again, that's phrased in the most skewed and biased way imaginable. Right, education. The parties oppose the inclusion of certain content in sex education, such as LGBT and pornographic topics. Right, are we opposed to education about LGBT issues? At some ages, yes. At ages, no. It's not the topics that are the problem. It's the message that's often the problem. So, as I've said many times, I've taught lessons about pornography to children and sex education, but my message will be very different from the message of the Scottish Government. And so it also supports education that includes the promotion of abstinence from alcohol. It's not true. It just is not true. Our policy says that young people should hear people with different perspectives, presenting their perspective, including teetotalism. Now, sometimes, I say this is the absolute truth, this is my experience, quite often journalists just don't seem to be capable of understanding sentences of the English language. So, for example, the journalist from the Times, in our policies, under freedom of speech, it says we would defend the right of people who oppose same-sex marriage to articulate their view free from professional legal consequences. He reads that and thinks, we're against same-sex marriage. But you don't really need to be that bright, do you, to understand that that isn't saying that. I mean, same here. I don't know if it's the person actually can't understand sentences of the English language, or if that's deliberate misinterpretation. I don't know. But one way or another, it's on Wikipedia, it's wrong, and there's really nothing we can do about it. There's nothing we can do about it. Right, controversies. In August 2017, Lucas defended comments that compared same-sex marriage to incest. That sounds bad, doesn't it? It sounds like I said same-sex marriage is the same as incest. What I said was the arguments that were being put forward in favour of incest with the same arguments that have been put forward in favour of same-sex marriage, which is a perfectly reasonable point to make, and that's a genuinely deliberate misinterpretation of what I said. I'd also said initially he denied that he'd posted a joke about the murder of Jo Cox shortly after her death. Again, what's that make it sound? A joke about the murder of Jo Cox. Ha ha ha, Jo Cox is being killed. That's what it sounds like, doesn't it? Quick update about what actually happened there. After Jo Cox was murdered, I had this letter published in the Scotsman. And it said, in the wake of Jo Cox's murder, we should indeed pause to consider the tone of debate in Britain. Politicians and public figures generally do refrain from excessive rhetoric. It's the wider population who should look in the mirror more closely. It's not that unusual to hear people saying that political figures should be shot or such like. They don't mean it for a minute, but the line between stupid talk and serious incitement can be lost on the mentally unstable. Degraded and unrestrained expression should be challenged and curbed. Too often valid points of view are described as hate speech, while genuinely hateful expressions are laughed off. The next time we hear someone mouthing off that a politician should be shot or the like, we should remind them of Jo Cox. The ensuing embarrassment and backtracking should be formative. No mention of that letter. Now that one didn't fit the narrative. Right, they picked up on another one. I wrote letter, and the letter was sort of humorous. So it's mocking some bad arguments for voting for to stay in the EU. So it's mocking bad arguments to stay in the EU. This is before the days of the family party, before it existed. So I wrote, the Queen asks for 3 good reasons to vote Remain. I'll provide 4. Political theorist David Beckham says so. Tongue-in-cheek, that's not really a good reason, is it? One's credentials as a nice, respectable person are enhanced. That's not really a very good reason, is it? If Nigel Farage isn't very nice, then he must be wrong about the EU. That's not really good logic, is it? Number 4, no deranged gunman has attacked a Brexit campaigner. That doesn't really make sense, does it? That's not a reason to vote to stay in the EU. I rest my case. The letter ended. Now, again, that's been willfully misinterpreted and presented to give the impression that I'd said something along the lines of, ha ha ha, Jo Cox has been killed. Total, deliberate misinterpretation from the national newspaper. That comes from, again. Right, moving on our Wikipedia page. In January 2019, the Aberdeen Altons Hotel cancelled an SFP event after a public backlash. Public backlash. How many people do you think that was? 1, maybe? 2, I would guess? Something like that. Public backlash. That's a lie. It's a lie. It's just not true. Members of the public threatened to boycott their hotel if the meeting was allowed. Now, the person writing that, they know full well that that's not true. That's an absolute lie. But anyways, Wikipedia. Anything goes. Anything goes. Right, the next one. Listen to this. The party submitted a complaint concerning a school celebration as part of LGBT History Month in February 2022. Happy Fest celebrated LGBT arts, including drag theatre, poetry, dance and music, at Dunbar Grammar School. But the SFP claimed that the act promoted a philosophy of gender fluidity that is confusing and dangerous to young people, and that the drag scene is often associated with less than positive values. A spokesman for East Lothian Council denied this, stating that they strongly refute any suggestion that we promote a philosophy that is confusing and dangerous to young people. The council spokeswoman went on to comment, Happy Fest is organised to raise awareness and challenge prejudice. It's a community event that celebrates creative expression and the arts. So that's the story, according to Wikipedia. I'll tell you what the story actually was. The story was, I wrote to Dunbar Grammar School and said, you are advertising that you've invited a drag performer to perform to your pupils, and I'd like to point out to you that this drag performer's show is vulgar, perverted and obscene, and I suggest you cancel it. And the school replied saying, yes, we'll cancel it. That's what happened. That's the story. But on Wikipedia, we're in fantasy world. Absolute fantasy world. Total misrepresentation of what actually went on. So that's Wikipedia. Totally biased. The Scottish Family Party YouTube account is currently frozen. We can't upload things, so this video will be a bit delayed on YouTube. The reason for that is they said we're spreading misinformation about a certain medical procedure that's used to try and stop people contracting an illness that's been very common over the last few years. And the clip that they reckoned that I'd spread this misinformation in was actually, I was actually saying exactly the opposite. But their artificial stupidity can't tell the difference between someone challenging some misinterpretation, misrepresentation of data with me presenting a more balanced and reasonable point of view. YouTube can't tell the difference. So we appealed, appeal rejected, and that's now a strike against our channel. Very frustrating, but there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do. Facebook still. Every time we go to our Facebook page, a message comes up says, don't break our community guidelines again, otherwise your page could be shut down. Again, the last time we broke their guidelines was for stating our policy on transgender issues, just stating party policy. Simple as that. So that's the situation we find ourselves in. The online world is, I say, generally the big tech companies appallingly biased. I suppose we can hope that Twitter might be the exception, but we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, when you read our Wikipedia page, please bear in mind that half of it is absolute nonsense.